In this video we want to deal with resource dependency theory. Now before we start this, it's worth recapping the material in other videos that you hopefully have encountered before you have got this far. Specifically the agency theory, the one which looks at the organization of the company as really a split between the owners on the one side and the managers on the other, which is known as the principal agent problem. And the owners who want security of investment and high returns on their investment, because that's why they invested in the company in the first place, presumably, they want that, but they're in conflict with the managers. The managers want security of employment. They don't want the company to be taken over by competitors. So it's in their interest to try and keep the share price high. But at the same time, the managers also want good working conditions. They want high salaries. They want bonuses. They want various perks within the job. And there's a power conflict between the two sides. The managers have a lot of power because they understand the business. They understand the technology. They understand the sources of supply and the conditions of supply. They understand the working routines of the business. Whereas the shareholders are very separated out. They live in different areas and they're not involved in the business, generally speaking, on a day-to-day basis. So therein lies what's known as the principal agent problem. Now one solution to this related to yet other videos we've produced on the topic of corporate governance. One possible solution is to appoint a board of directors. Now the board of directors are appointed by the shareholders, and it's the role of the board of directors to monitor the managers, to make sure that the managers are behaving ethically and correctly and in the interest of the shareholders, not in their own interests entirely. So we have the concept now of the shareholders on the one side, the management on the other side, and in between the board of directors, who in a sense arbitrates, who negotiates and arbitrates between the two sides and tries to make sure that the company works in the interest of the owners, but at the same time facilitates the needs or the requirements of the management. So it's looking for compromise between the two. In fact, the board of directors can bring a lot of skill into the organization that perhaps otherwise would be missing. So the directors can be appointed from different backgrounds with different experiences and are able to contribute to the business. And that really is the subject matter of resource dependency theory. The idea that we can look at the board of directors and look at what skills and abilities and what knowledge they bring to bear on their positions, and in so doing further the interests of the business. So resource dependency theory links the firm and its outside resources. So it's a bridge between the company and its outside resources. Companies clearly need resources from the outside in the form of raw materials, skilled labour, goodwill within the market, a good reputation within the market. The companies need contact with the outside. Directors connect the firm with external factors by co-opting the resources needed to survive. So the directors who are appointed, as I said earlier, these directors can have a lot of contacts with other companies. In fact, some directors may hold directorships of many companies simultaneously and thereby are able to connect companies together through the directorships that they hold. So a director may be simultaneously a director of several companies and thereby are able to see ways in which those companies can help each other, they can collaborate and they can share resources and are able to bring solutions to the organizations that would not otherwise have been obvious or possible. Boards of directors are an important mechanism for dealing with environmental uncertainty. We all face uncertainty. We don't know what the future holds. We're also broadly ignorant of all of the processes that are going on within the society. We can't possibly know everything. But boards of directors, because of their experience and because of their skills and why they were appointed in the first place, because of those factors, they're able to facilitate the organisation in dealing with the environment and in dealing with the uncertainty that it confronts. Environmental linkages, or if you like, network governance, could reduce transaction costs associated with environmental interdependency. Organisations are interdependent with the environment. Organisations don't exist in a vacuum. They have to relate to the local community, they have to relate to the local politicians, they have to follow the laws of the land, they have to follow many factors. Plus, they have to deal with their competitors and deal with technological change and deal with globalization. They have many factors to deal with, which makes it extremely complicated. The ability of the directors to facilitate in decision making, which overcomes or partially overcomes the uncertainty caused by this interdependency or interdependencies, that is to be welcomed. It reduces transaction costs. By transaction costs here we mean that the company otherwise would have to research, develop, think of routines and ways in which information could be collected. The information would have to be checked for its veracity, and it would have to be checked to see if it's appropriate. It would be a costly and complicated procedure to try and deal with uncertainty, try to collect information, try to research. It's far easier to have a board of directors, some of whom have expert knowledge, and they can simply guide the company through turbulent waters. The organisations need to require resources, and these lead to the development of exchange relationships or network governance between organisations. Companies do need resources. They need to link to each other. They need to know who's supplying what and what technology is available and what are people working on. They need to know what's going on. They need to know the way other companies are thinking. Not just their competitors, but also their suppliers. It's important that companies understand their environment, so that they can make good decisions that will sustain the business, help the business to continue into the future. So they have a need for this type of resource, a resource which will easily and quickly bring information into them. Further, the uneven distribution of needed resources results in interdependencies in organizational relationship. Companies don't all need the same resources. Companies all don't look for the same resources. They have different products, they have different backgrounds, they have different capacities, they have different working relationships with their customers and their suppliers. So there's a very uneven set of demands for resources. And this means that it's even more complicated to run a business. Sometimes within the local community, certain skilled workers will be in short supply, but other workers may be abundant. Sometimes raw materials may be in scarce supply because other companies are trying to buy them up. So it's important that companies try to find out what's happening, preferably before it happens. And the way to do that, a good way to do that, and in a sense a cheap way of doing it, is by having directors on the board who have knowledge of what is going on. Knowledge because of their outside contacts. Now, the determinants of dependence. Well, how important are the resources? If the resources are critical to the survival of the business, then this means that the dependence is very strong. The companies must link to each other, they must know what each other is demanding and using, they must know the sources of the supply, they must know how much is available, the prices, the production of that particular resource. They must understand what's happening on the outside. If they don't, they may hit the proverbial wall in the future. They may hit a problem in the future that means that they don't have access to the necessary resources that they require. They must know where there are shortages emerging within the resource packages that they need. What resources are running short and why? Why are they running short? Is it because there is an increasing global demand, or the supply of this particular item is running out, or what's happening? But this could be not just raw materials, this could be, as I said earlier, skilled labour within a given area. There could be a relative shortage of electricians or of carpenters. And why is that the case? What's happening? What brought this shortage about? The extent to which the resources or the resource is concentrated in the environment. Sometimes resources only exist in particular parts of the world for geological reasons. Maybe some resources can only be found in certain areas. For example, industrial diamonds will come from certain parts of the world. They're not spread evenly throughout the world. And this means that the company must understand the politics of the area. They must understand exchange rates and what's happening within the international financial community. They must understand the relationship that one country has with another in terms of trading. They must understand the procedures and the documentations required and the culture in doing deals with that country. And to facilitate all of that, the most useful way of doing it is to have a member of the board of directors who has expert knowledge and experience and background perhaps in dealing with this. And that person may be appointed to the board because of that. Directors may serve to link the external resources with the firm within the firm, I should say, to overcome uncertainty. So they can link the external sources to the firm and also to various processes within the firm to overcome the uncertainty. The directors would then be in almost a unique position of understanding what's happening within the firm, within the business, and also know where the resources perhaps reside or where they can be procured, and know what the conditions of the procurement is, and enable the business to continue. So they are bridging the gulf between what the company needs and what's available, but what's available somewhere else, where it's available perhaps in a different country. But they're able to bridge that gap. According to the resource dependency rule, the directors bring resources such as information, skills, key constituents. Now the key constituents here could be the suppliers, the buyers, the public policy decision makers, and social groups. These could be key constituents. These are groups that must be taken into account when making decisions. And also look at the legitimacy of the whole process. But when all of these are taken into account, then there is reduced uncertainty because the company knows exactly what needs to be done. Before all of these various requirements are articulated, the company is in a position of uncertainty. Consider the potential results of connecting the firm with external environmental factors and reducing uncertainty will decrease the transaction cost associated with external association. The transaction costs, as I said earlier, could be the costs not just of getting the resources from an external supplier in a form that can be used, but it could also include, for example, finding that resource. That's a transaction cost. Negotiating, getting an agreement and then shipping, payment methods, and agreeing on payment methods and terms of the payments and contractual arrangements. All of these could be seen as types of transactional costs. Well, when there is a member of staff, a director in the company who has knowledge of these processes, then that is greatly facilitated, and those transaction costs are reduced as a consequence. The theory supports the appointment of directors to multiple boards because of their opportunities to gather information and networks in various ways. And that's not what's often generally understood by many people. It's potentially a very good thing for directors of a company to simultaneously have directorships of other companies, because in this way their knowledge and experience is wider and widened. They are getting more experience from various parts of their working lives and are able to bring back to the company, bring back to the organization that experience. And that will further enable the business to make good decisions and to survive. So having a board of directors who are simultaneously involved with other companies, not necessarily with the competitors, because that could lead to collusion or to the allegations of collusion, but perhaps working with companies not directly in competition with the business, but other companies who are involved with similar types of perhaps products or raw materials or processes. Because then the director is more knowledgeable because of the enhanced experience from working with these various organizations. So that's a way in which transaction costs can be reduced. And essentially that's what we mean by resource dependency theory. But that's all we're going to deal with in this session, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.